Hey, D Darren?
Yeah,
Okay, I couldn't undo my camera. Oh, there. Okay, I have about an hour. Do you want to continue the interview?
yeah, absolutely. Are we waiting for Henrietta?
Henrietta's just taking some tea.
You making some tea?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, what do you want to talk about?
So, first of all, very happy to have this chance to chat with you again. Really appreciate you making some time.
Thanks.
You know absolutely everybody in the community. I mean, Whitley Strieber, Linda Moulton Howe. I'm sure you knew Art Bell when he was alive. Is
I
that true?
didn't know him, but I met him once.
Mhm.
Met him once.
George Knapp. I mean, the list
I
is.
just saw George Knapp at the conference. You should come out to the next Contact in the Desert.
Yeah, I mean, since my roommate goes, it'd be easy for me to do that.
Who's your roommate? Do I know him?
I don't know if you guys have formally met. He knows who you are.
What's his name?
His name is Mike Rezel. He is Let's Talk UFOs on the UFO Reddit. He's one of the mods there, and he's been a mod there for a long time.
Oh, really? I like UFO Reddit. It's a lot more friendly than UFO Twitter. That's like a jungle.
He works really, really diligently to keep that community in good shape, and
Oh,
he
I
was
did have a
also.
question about UFO Twitter, actually. Someone made a really intelligent comment, and let me see if I can find that person. Why doesn't he come on the call with us?
Right now, so he's active in a variety of different communities. He's also a mod on our experiencers, which of course is a place where people can discuss non-ordinary experience.
Where can I find that?
That's on. I'll send you a link to that subreddit when we finish, today. And I can certainly put you in touch with him. He is also extremely active in the Burning Man community, and so presently he's part of the Department of Public Works out there. And he sets the place up, and he stays to tear it down when everybody's left. So yeah, he's at Burning Man right now. Otherwise, he would
Oh, he's at Burning Man now.
yeah, he would joyfully be on the call with
I mean,
us.
he's at Burning Man setting it up because it's
Yeah.
not to.
Of course, it's going to be about a week before he gets to Gerlach, I think is where the DPW meets, Department of Public Works. He was also active in setting up a website that allows people to create an account there and then automatically email their representatives with pro-disclosure materials, right, to encourage the representatives to support disclosure, whatever the heck that may turn out to mean.
Okay.
Um, so
Um,
I want to get to some sort of juicy questions here today.
okay. I'm putting this in the chat. This guy had some good comments on Reddit. See if he knows him.
Okay,
When you
excellent.
see him.
Uh,
MU Renaissance. Yeah.
yeah, there we go.
All right. No, but
Yeah,
okay. Ask me some questions. Yeah. I just
all
want to
right.
say I'm reading a good book called The UFO Paradox, Keith Thompson. Very intelligent.
Can you say a little bit about what you find unique or interesting about that?
Well, he's not looking for answers, which is impossible at this point. He's presenting the facts, which is what I like to do, what we know and what we don't know, and how to get from where we know or what we don't know to where we can know. So that's takes a whole different way of looking at things. There she is, Miss America.
Hi.
Huh.
Hey, Henrietta.
Hey, Henrietta, how are you?
Hi, Alan.
I wonder, is
Hi,
Kat and
Darren.
Mario out here?
Yes, they are.
Oh, give me their number.
I will. I'll send you cats. I think they're
Hey,
coming tomorrow or the next day, but they're there. Yeah.
well, they're there. Yeah, I want to see them. Because I'm in the very nice house this year.
Yes, I
You
know.
can't get to you can't get to New York this week?
No, I can't.
Why?
Next year.
What's going on for you?
Well, I'm going away this weekend, but yeah, no, I can't because I can't really afford to. I've got to wait till September.
Oh,
But I wish I could be on Fire Island next year. I'll plan it better.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Anyway, yeah, let's go.
Lovely.
It's very lovely. Yes. Yes.
Well, we'll chat another time. You can give me the
Well,
tour.
let me give you and Darren a quick look around
Okay. Hi, Darren.
at this house that I'm, well, this is the house.
Oh,
The
wow.
house is not,
Great. Oh, it's not the same one as.
no, no, it's a different, this is a very nice bedroom
Oh,
here.
it's lovely, Alan.
Yes. This
Wow, it's
is,
really nice. Darren, I've been with Alan to
this is
Fire
the
Island like 3 summers
outdoors.
in a row, and it's just
Yeah.
lovely. There are no cars, and everybody
This
just
is,
walks barefoot on
it's a
the
little
boardwalk.
hidden
And you
paradise here.
bicycle around and you feel like you're in like a Spielberg movie in the 1980s. You know, riding bicycles kind of into the sunset. It's just
Awesome.
amazing.
Oh, look at the backyard here.
Oh, it's fantastic, Alan. It's lovely.
Look at this nice backyard.
It's really nice. Oh God, I wish I was there more. Yeah. Well, anyway,
Yes. Very nice.
very nice.
Outdoor shower, of course, Darren. You need an outdoor shower when you're.
That was my favorite thing ever. Some of
I
my friends
know.
built a house in Drayton and they had an outdoor shower and I just loved it.
This
I
is
didn't
Oh,
even care if
it's
the water was hot.
this is
yeah.
the outdoor shower.
You'd love it there, Darren. So the island, Fire Island, is like this little strip. You can just walk, and it's very
You can walk for
unsettled.
miles. You can walk for 20
And
miles.
there's no traffic. It's just lovely.
Hmm.
And it doesn't feel like there's media. You just feel like you're bicycling and talking and walking and cooking. It's really nice.
Beautiful.
And obviously going in the ocean in the
Yes,
early
the ocean.
morning at
Here,
night.
I'll just show you a little view of the street
Oh,
out
it's
here.
great, Alan.
This is the street
Wow.
and the beach. We're like 3 houses from the beach. It's right there.
Wow. I recognize that house.
Yeah, it's a nice house across the street, of course, but
Yes.
this is the, yeah, I love the vegetation. I grew up in like this kind of environment, so
Yeah,
it
you
feels
did.
very comfortable here.
I know. I feel much more comfortable there than England. I mean, that's where I want to be, really.
Well, anyway, let's talk. Go ahead,
Yeah, let's
Darren.
talk.
What's
Yeah,
going on?
so you were talking about the book. I'm curious if you encountered any thoughts, perspective, or ideas in there that you found novel or inspiring.
Yes, novel and inspiring. I have this particular one by Keith Thompson, The UFO Paradox. I've been reading that book, which is very interesting, Henrietta. And he says, Rudolf Otto, you know him? He was a student of Freud.
Hmm.
He talks about the mysterious tremendum. Have you heard that term, mysterious tremendum? Which means the mystery that is both terrifying and transforming and fascinating at the same time. Terrifying and fascinating. I guess that's really essentially. And that's what the phenomena is. Um, it fits the bill on all accounts, he says. Calling it a phenomena is much more inclusive than calling it an object. So calling it an unidentified aerial phenomena is much more to the point than calling it a unidentified flying object.
Mhm.
So that's something I think the government is suggesting to us as a way of advancing our knowledge. And what do you think of that?
Well, certainly, the situation calls into question all of our common ideas about categories and identity, what things are, who we are, what the
That's a
world
really
is. what time space is, all of these things are drawn dramatically into question because the phenomenon does not represent itself in a continuously identifiable fashion. And in
Yeah.
fact, you can imagine there's both there's sort of stories where there's a kind of a playful element to the interaction, and there's stories where there's a very dire element to the interaction, and there's stories that sort of overarch both of those where the primary nature of what's going on is just mysterious, right?
Yes.
So I'm curious, clearly, Alan, you're aware that a variety of psyops have been going on for quite some time, organized at least by the United States government, if not other governments as well. I'd love to hear anything you have to say about that that you think might be enlightening.
About the psyops in regards to UFOs or
Yes,
everything.
to the phenomenon.
In regards to the phenomenon, I just wrote a little piece about that. Let me see if I can find that piece because I think psyops is a big. Well, the Air Force had a ridicule campaign against people coming forward. It's about the manipulation. Let me just look up psyop. Yeah, it's some people though say it's on behalf of the phenomena itself. I'm sure you heard that is dictating to those in charge how to approach the ongoing disclosure. You
So
know?
I find this very interesting, and I'm curious about your thoughts related to. Okay, let me ask a couple of staging questions so that we can have some clarity about what's being asked. Obviously, I suspect in your mind, if there are other intelligences involved, non-human intelligences, I suspect you imagine that there is an array of such intelligences.
Well,
What are
that's
your
the
thoughts about
point in question, though. Wait, before you go any further, let me just address that point. Um, there is and there isn't. There's either an array of intelligence or somehow, because they all seem to be all connected with each other. Sometimes you see different types of ETs together, or sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. You get Carla Turner, who had awful abduction experiences, and you get Chris Bledsoe, who had these amazing healings. So, are they all the same? Are they different? I say, and you'll like this, Henrietta, they're part of what I would say is nature, a supernatural nature. So, you could get stung by a bee or you could smell a rose. That's all nature, so they're all part of one thing in a sense because we call it nature. And they're also very different aspects of that nature. Nature, you could be nourished or you can eat a poison mushroom. I mean, so within our limited, very limited range of categorizations, we see separateness in the phenomena like we do in the world, or, animals eat animals, things like that. It's like, or so is that good or bad? It's all the natural world. So I just saw a great film about Jane Goodall studying the chimps. Did you see that? I saw her on the
Yes.
plane. Isn't that
Yes.
fantastic?
Yes, it is. It's really beautiful. And
She's just so amazing. And
I
she said,
remember I remember
it's a
reading
new
a book
film.
that Gombe when I was in my early 20s, and I was just absolutely enchanted by her.
oh, she's amazing. This
Well,
film is
she said, I thought the chimps were very peaceful and loving, and then one tribe ended up killing and wiping out the other tribe, and an awful inhuman, I mean, humans are inhuman, but in a way. So it's separate things and it's one thing, just like nature.
Okay, so one of the nuances that I think you're bringing up here is that we as interested human beings and as intelligent, hopefully, human beings can approach it from different angles for different purposes. We can approach it from unity
Mm.
as nature, right? The broad picture. And then we can also approach it from the desire to distinguish between various contact events and situations. So, okay, that I think that,
But you know who wrote a really great essay about this is Jeffrey Kripal. You know Jeffrey Kripal?
yeah, he's
Yeah.
brilliant. I love him.
He has
Yeah.
the we should go there, Henrietta, the Archives of the Impossible.
Yes, yes.
Whitley Strieber just was there and he outlaid all the pictures people sent him from the communion letters and incredible stuff,
Yeah,
so
the archives of the impossible are amazing. I've listened to many podcasts from different angles of the archives. I think including Whitley's. Whitley was a speaker there. Um,
yeah.
okay, so let's see, where was I going here? So you mentioned that perhaps some faction or a number of factions are um, influencing probably primarily the United States government because it seems like we're in the front of this game of disclosure and probably of craft recovery, body recovery, the whole historical. I mean, do you have any evidence that other countries are anywhere near us?
Well, not only we are in possession, but we have a very imperialistic view of crash retrieval in other, like there's evidence, I talked to Jaime Mustan about this, that the US went into Mexico,
Yeah.
killed the Mexican army, and took their craft over the border. They also went into Brazil and got the Virginia craft there. They've gone into Canada. Somehow, they feel they can just go into a country and get the craft. They got the craft from Italy that was being kept by the Vatican from the 1933 thing that Mussolini showed Hitler, and because he thought it was Nazis. You heard about that, right? So somehow there's this sense that the U.S. is in control of phenomena. I don't know how or why other countries, especially Russia. That was my big complaint about Tucker Carlson going to talk to Putin. Did you see that? Which he did a really poor job of. He didn't ask him the UFO question, and Tucker's into UFOs. I mean, how could you miss that one? I
All
mean,
right, so let's just let me circle a couple of pivots here for a moment. So, I've thought very carefully about this, and I've followed the phenomenon since I was a child. Perhaps not as long as you, Alan, but since I was 6 or 7. So we're talking 1969 or something, right? I read Chariots of the Gods when I was 8 years old, and have been fascinated by this forever. And I've paid very close attention and have not been caught up in the cult, so to speak, but more intellectually and philosophically and perhaps even scientifically interested. And one thing that is obvious to me is that any faction of human beings that are in possession of technology, artifacts, or bodies from a non-human intelligence are in possession of the holy grail of asymmetric military advantage, literally the holy grail. This is the most important thing in the entire history of our species, right? So any faction of a government or a civilization that is in possession of just even intelligence about the topic would likely to represent a sort of a speciation event, a breakaway civilization. What do you think? What are your thoughts about this, Alan?
I see no evidence of a breakaway civilization. I asked Richard Dolan, who actually originated that term,
Mm.
and I said, Richard, where's the proof? And he couldn't give me a straight answer. So I do think we're in possession of the technology, but I don't think we know how to actually duplicate it. That's the
Yes.
problem.
But would you agree that a faction in possession of that tech represents space? Okay, let me make an example, right? Imagine that there's a small faction of humans that possess, for example, advanced computing devices, and the rest of the people just have pen and paper. Are these two different species? Because this seems to be the question to me. What do you think, Alan?
I don't think we are in possession of zero point energy at this point. I don't think we have understood how to incorporate alien technology into Newtonian physics, you know.
Of course,
Um,
I agree.
I mean, but some people say, yeah, there's a breakaway civilization. We have craft out in space. Linda Moulton Howe thinks that, and I disagree with her. I mean, I love Linda,
Mhm.
but she's saying, oh, yeah, the US is going to Mars. I don't see any evidence, or the Serpo projects and where they went to So I don't see any evidence of it. I mean, I see evidence of a cover up, I see evidence of ETs manipulating consciousness. I see all that, but I don't see us. I mean, I think we have advanced technologies, yes. I mean, some people are flying jets and other people are flying these triangular craft. So we are definitely more advanced. And it just so happens when people quit the military and they've been working on these black projects, they go into private industry and make a fortune there,
Mhm.
you know, which is should be illegal.
I
So,
see your point.
so what's your question then? What is your question?
So, I mean, obviously, the possession of even intelligence about non-humans would represent an asymmetric military advantage, and
Well,
possibly,
not if they can't produce technology from it.
yes, but I mean, we have a long history of likely, what would I call it? Technologies influenced by perhaps non-human technologies. For example, fiber optics and transistors. Do you think there has been an influence?
Yeah, I
Screen?
think this, if you read Kenneth Corso's The Day After Roswell, he talks about the transistors and fiber optics all coming from the Roswell thing. So,
Gary
um,
Nolan recently made an excellent example. He was like, well, suppose we were able to transport, say, a cell phone back in time to cavemen, right? They wouldn't be able to use it as a cell phone, but by examining the cell phone, they might be able to discover the possibility of glass, right? And then like melt sand maybe. And so he was saying that we might be in a similar position where we've received these artifacts that we don't understand and can't use, but they can inspire certain very specific developments.
well, that's what happens. If you read Diana Paselka, did you read American Cosmic
Oh, of course, yes.
and her latest book, Encounters?
I'm working on that one now.
She talks about the guy Tyler going in,
Mhm.
creating medicine that can only be made in anti-gravity.
Right, right, yeah.
So there's a donation field too that she talks about, you know, where they set down craft so we can gather technology from it. So that's happening, but we have yet, in my opinion, developed a technology that can go interdimensionally or something like that.
So, okay, that's just so many questions. Yes, that makes sense to me. I want to ask you about a couple of background stories and your thoughts about them. So there's some anecdotal stories that there was direct contact between, let's just call them aliens for now, even though we really mean non-human intelligences, and a specific people or branches of the United States government. Perhaps there was an offer made. Here's the specific rumor that I want to ask you about.
Wait, wait,
There's an anecdotal
wait, wait,
story. Sure.
wait, where are you getting that information from?
I think you'll recognize the story when I bring it up. So there's an anecdotal story that there was an offer of tech that would give us, no more scarcity.
Wait, say that again. I just had to turn off the air conditioner. So what were you saying?
So there's an anecdotal story that perhaps Eisenhower or another president or possibly the military was approached with an offer of the end of scarcity, right? Something like zero point energy and freedom from disease and so on. And this offer was turned down because it would destroy our economy. And then a later faction came and said, well, how about weapons? And we said yes to that. Have you ever heard anything like that yourself?
Yeah, of course, that they've traded technology for alien abductions. Yeah, I've heard that. That's a
Yeah,
common
that was
theme.
the anecdotal trade pivot, right? Was we'll give you weapons in return for bodies.
I don't know if that's true. Some people say Eisenhower didn't meet um, aliens. Other people say, like Richard Dolan's interview, that they invaded Area 51 because no one would tell him what was going on there. So I don't I don't think anyone except like a very few people actually know the answer to the Eisenhower situation. So I think it's possible, but I don't know. I'm not one of those insiders, but I do want to read Lou Elizondo's book when it comes out in just 20 days, couple of 2, 3 weeks. Get that, Henrietta. Get Eminent.
And by the way, Henrietta, if you have a question or anything you want to contribute or ask, just
Thanks.
jump
Yeah,
on
no,
in.
I'm just enjoying listening because I don't know all this information
Well,
like you. I just have my own
you
thoughts.
know, I was in a crop circle once in 888 on the 888 crop circle. And when
Oh,
because it was new, there was this black helicopter that came very low to the ground, was videotaping everything. And I
mm,
was going to videotape the helicopter,
uh-huh.
but I felt like, no, don't do that. I don't know. It felt weird. Like they were I don't know. I just didn't want to get involved in that whole thing.
Yeah, that makes
It
sense.
was very strange, because it was incredible formation on
Where was
8
that?
in England on August 8th, 2008. It was in the shape of an 8. And it was quite amazing, as if they were responding to our cultural, counting. So with an 8. But it wasn't just an 8, it was a Mobius strip 8 where the outside becomes the inside. So
Mm. So it
they
was
give
quite
it
like that.
something. Yeah, look at the 8 formation in,
Yeah, no, I was just having a look.
yeah, look up
Okay,
the 8.
so a couple of questions here.
I
Gosh,
don't have, yeah, go
let
ahead.
me see if I can focus. So one of the things is, okay, yes, this is one of the questions. In your mind, when you think about these matters, do you does it ever occur to you that perhaps what's going on has nothing to do with technology, that it's something else altogether, that it's not about machines? Because the humans keep saying it's about machines, it's got to be about machines, give us the machines, we want the machines. What do you think? Might it not be mechanical?
Mm.
Well, you keep asking either or, and I'm saying
Both.
both and.
Sure.
And so it is physical. This is Jeffrey Kripal's great contribution. He says there's a doubling effect. It's physical and non-physical. It's subjective and objective. It's material and immaterial. It's consciousness. It's technology. It's things we can't understand because we're very limited in our scope of either it's this or that. So the wave particle thing is, it's not that either it's a
Yes.
wave or a particle. It's
Yeah,
both a wave and a particle.
It's also
It's
something we don't have a concept for.
exactly,
Like
which is
literally
everything
our
we're talking about.
lexicon is missing the features that might allow
yes.
us to address or entertain the perspectives that would be enlightening, I think.
Exactly. I'm going to find this quote by Noam Chomsky. He's not talking about UFOs, but he's talking about something that we can relate to as far as this discussion,
That was a very timely and brilliant
and
comment.
it's just
I very much appreciate that because I'm someone who, based on my own experiences, have
Mm.
grave mistrust of the way that we moderns utilize categories and binary logic and so forth.
Mm.
I was specifically trained to hold multiple perspectives in a perspectival um, manifold, right? Without validating any single perspective, just to hold the space of the manifold in consciousness in order to think about things that don't fit with how we are ordinarily trained to use categories and to think about identity.
right. So you can't, it's what John Mack said. We need other ways of knowing. We can't understand this with our left brain. This is, I'm sure it's logical on some level, but it's not logical in the way we understand and use logic. That's the bottom line. We're not sophisticated enough to, but we can be. We need more abstract thinking, or what John Keats called negative capabilities. You know that term?
I don't say more about what he means. I have an intuition about
Negative capability, it's not a very good term, but it's a way to hold contradictory thoughts at the same time,
simultaneously, yes.
simultaneously.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, together. And that's an evolution. So we're thinking either or. Either it's technology or it's not. We they're showing us our next phase of evolution. We've gotten so far, but we're still running the world on Newtonian physics. That's 400 years old. Power out, power back, cause and effect. These things are not running on cause and effect. They're running on cause and effect at the same time. There's there's a whole different way, and we are slowly being educated, sometimes traumatically, sometimes not, in a new way of thinking. But there's so much resistance because, like Neil deGrasse Tyson, he says, "Oh no, the Tic Tac was an artifact of the radar on the plane." And Fravor says, "No, I saw." He didn't say it to Tyson, but he said, "No, I saw this with my own eyes. This was not." And Neil deGrasse Tyson refuses to even hear that. He says, it's impossible. It's only impossible because it doesn't fit into my worldview.
I mean,
So
let's face it,
I don't know,
Tyson.
BMWs.
I mean, Tyson is a television personality with a stipend to defend and is what I would call a sophisticated idiot as far as this particular topic is.
No, it goes back to Thomas Kuhn, Thomas Kuhn theories of scientific revolution. He was actually a mentor to John Mack. He was a friend of the family.
Brilliant. Uh-huh.
Mm.
And John, and he was older, he was a friend of John's father. And John gets into the abduction stuff, and he calls up Thomas Kuhn and he says, "Tom, I think I got one." Meaning, I think I got a paradigm buster here, you know? So Thomas Kuhn says to Mac, "Don't form a judgment, just hear it all without evaluating, without saying it's possible or not. Take in all the information first and then do the evaluation," which is something Francis Bacon and William James both talked about in empiricism. You know, Francis Bacon, William James, John Mack, they all kind of trusted the phenomena, the experience over scientific method.
Mm.
The scientific method does not work when you're, living real life situations. It's not repeatable. It's not provable in that term.
Yes,
So
the scope of the applicability of repeatability and reductionism is real, but it's minimal compared to what actually exists.
there is no subjective and objective reality. First of all, those are fabrications, just like time and space is a fabrication. We think it's real, but we think we're in these video screens too, or we think we are, but really we're not in these little computer screens here. But if I thought I was in that computer screen, then that would be my whole world. And I would, but it's like of course, it goes back to the allegory of the cave. It's no different. It's just a little updated version of
And also
Plato's.
flatland.
Flatland, yeah. Flatland too, yeah. All that.
Okay, so many more questions. Who do you think is doing some of the best current work on the topic?
Gary Nolan definitely is one of the more intelligent voices out there.
Also a
Jeffrey,
crusader.
what's that?
He's a crusader.
Yeah, that's
He's got
linked to
he's holding the sword, right?
the link to the Jeffrey Kripal talk that he did at Seoul, which is the Gary Nolan that's in the chat. He's doing great work. I mean, he's a little conservative, but he's great. He wrote the Supernatural book, Henrietta, with Whitley.
Yes. Kripal, you mean?
Kripal, yes.
Yeah, no, he's amazing.
We
That
should
book,
go, let's go to Texas sometime to Rice University and check out the archives on the
I'd
impossible.
love to. Yeah.
Um,
I was thinking, can
those,
I just ask? Well,
yeah,
can
no,
I ask this?
no, go ahead. I want to hear from you. Yeah.
Just a very quick question. I know this might, I mean, it sounds really weird, but it keeps popping up. Like, does anybody ever speak to children that see them? Like all these,
Well,
I don't
John
know.
Mack
It just
did.
occurs to me that it's all these people thinking so hard about, which of course is good, but like, what if you just don't have that capacity to analyze in ways that do?
Oh,
Like,
John Mack did talk to children. He
right.
did. So.
I mean, I'm kind of curious, like, how would that impact them? Like, it would be so interesting to know, children who have experienced these things, because it would just be a kind
Oh,
of,
well, actually, if you read my book, and maybe Mary Rodwell has a whole chapter on what these children are. Yeah, read the Star Seeds in my book, must be
the last
chapter
chapter, I think.
10, I think.
Yeah. Anyway.
She's great too. Mary, you'll love Mary. Do you know Mary's, Darren?
I don't.
She's fantastic. She's a very intelligent English woman with a great sense of humor.
Mm.
She came to Fire Island with me once, Henrietta.
Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, because she was visiting New York and she had no place to stay, so I brought her out to Fire Island.
So
Anyway,
Sorry, carry on. Yeah. I was
this
just,
leads to, and again, I have so many questions. I know we're not going to get to even half of them, but
that's okay.
it leads in a direction though that I want to ask you about. I'm trying to think clearly how to frame it, and I have some of my own perspectives on it, some of which have just undergone a radical shift as of yesterday. But because these are things that I chase all the time, like I'm very curious about these matters. So let me try to introduce the question. Have in your mind, Alan, what do you suppose is the actual historical relationship between our species and other intelligences?
Well, I do think we were upgraded over many, many phases of development. We're not like any other species on this planet. We did not evolve from the Earth apes. So we're hybrids. We really are hybrids. And I think we're coming into another phase of hybridization. I think the Anunnaki were part of that, but even 7 million years ago, we separated from the evolving primates. I mean, there's evidence of also in my book, I think it's actually is in Mary Rodwell's chapter. We have a gene that seems unlike any other gene that just came out of nowhere, so we're hybrids, and we're also we do that to plants all the time. We create hybrid species. The grapefruit is a hybrid species. There's lots of hybrid species, and we're one of them. So yeah, we are being watched. I mean, this is something Charles Fort, one of the original people. Do you know Charles Fort's work?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
You know
I'm
Charles
in
Fort?
times.
a
You know him?
diagonal
14 times,
anomalist.
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He was the original kind of conspiracy guy in the
Yes.
So, he says we're cattle being ruled. I don't think that's true, but we're definitely being manipulated or controlled for maybe, though it's a good reason, or maybe it's not a good reason. I think I tend to be that glass is half full. So,
Okay, so there's some related questions. First of all, the idea that we're cattle doesn't make a lot of sense because we wouldn't need mines to be cattle. We wouldn't need technology to be cattle. None of that would.
well, we would need minds if we're feeding the archonic matrix, if you know what
Okay,
that is.
yeah, there you go. That's true.
So the archonic matrix wants us to think just enough to create the dramas to engage their, energy bodies to feed off of our emotional, dramas.
And is that something you take seriously?
I do think there's an element. I think we could break out of that. I think there's a lot of people stuck in emotional drama because they are being feeding the archonic mind matrix. Yes, but if you're aware of it, then you can get free of it. So
And is it the awareness that frees you? What's
what
the
frees you is not indulging in the drama. I mean, emotionality as opposed to feelings. We're here to feel, but angry people, they have this chemical. It's like an addiction, and they're addicted to the chemicals of anger, and they don't even know it. And when they stop being angry, the body says, "Uh-oh, we need that chemical." But those emotions themselves feed the archonic mind matrix because they live off our what Robert Monroe called louche, which is any sort of intense emotion. They create wars. I mean, is there really a reason to go and invade another country? I mean,
No, I
is
mean the
there,
views on Moss are insane and have long apparently been nuts in this way, right?
I
In that
mean, Israelis and Palestinians, you put them side by side, you cannot tell the difference.
yeah.
It's, and this is what Robert Lawler said to me, Henrietta. He says, who kills other people over words in a book? It's such nonsense. Like, would you, but it's a holy book, so then it's okay because those people aren't holy. And when you demonize people, it's okay, you know, to do them in because,
I'm smiling not because this is funny, but because it leads to further important questions like um, what were there intimate relationships, perhaps symbiotic relationships between our species
Hmm.
and beings that are not necessarily corporeal or are partially
well,
corporeal?
it is symbiotic for some
Yes, that's what I'm
people.
asking. Yeah.
You know why? Because without their emotionality, they don't know who they are. They think they are their dramas. So that gives them a purpose, and that's symbiotic. The archons give them a purpose. They fulfill that purpose. They feed that purpose. There's a great book out you might really enjoy it by Isabella Green called The Reincarnation Trap. And I interviewed her recently. I'll send you a link to that interview. And she says the whole purpose of reincarnation is to feed those beings because this is a louche farm. And I don't know if I totally agree with that. I think there's evolutionary reasons for incarnation,
Mm.
but she's
But can
like
I
very
just ask,
extreme.
like all
But
these, can I just ask quickly about
yeah,
these narratives? Like, where do they come from? Like, I don't understand
where do the
how.
archons come from?
Oh, no, no, no. Why would that narrative, like, that seems pretty far out, like, just to, like, you could kind of make up anything. Like, maybe it's a
Well, people
symbolic
do.
story that points to something, but I don't understand.
But Henrietta, people make up everything all the time. They make up religion. They make up ideas of karma and astrology, or
I
I mean,
know, but
so people
I
make
would
it
have
up all
thought,
the time.
I know, but wouldn't one want to be careful about making up stuff about this when we really
Well,
don't know?
it's not this is what they believe, just like people believe their religion. This is what they believe to be true. So, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but we're all making it up. We're making up the whole story about UFOs, ETs. There's no proof, but there's no not proof. But, you know, we're making up a narrative because
Mm.
there's something there. Obviously, there's something out there.
No, yeah. I mean, the curiosity, like the questions that Darren's asking and you're answering are really interesting. But when it goes into kind of the archonic thing is stealing from that, it's like, how on earth would one deduce something like that?
Well, did you read Paul Levy's book, the
No.
Watiko?
No.
Oh, I'm going to send you my interview of the archons.
Mm.
I mean, it does sound like something
I
made
don't
up
know. I
because
was just curious.
it's so hard to believe that there are, and I don't know if it's true even, but it makes sense because, I saw my mother when I was younger
Mm.
turn into not like a demon, but she was taken over. She was taken over by something that just went into this
Oh,
insane rage. And she's actually suffering from something like that now, but that was no longer my mother as I knew her. It was something else. And maybe, of course, it's a psychological issue, but it could be an energetic issue as well.
So
So
look, there's a broad array from far back in history. I know I keep making this gesture, but
that's
it's
okay.
useful to think about things in kind of a three dimension, like a sphere or a pie chart or whatever. There's a broad array of sort of prison planet narratives, right? Where
hmm.
the Loosh or vampires, right? Something non-human is feeding on the human
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
keeping us trapped in this cycle. So one example, which is a little bit eccentric or esoteric, is an
Hmm.
example of a text that was supposedly dictated by a nurse who was involved in the Roswell crash, and the
Hmm.
alien who was called, I believe, Isle, AISL, or something like this, who was apparently female, would only talk to the nurse. And there's this
Hmm.
long document that basically says something like there were two factions, the Dominion and the Old Empire. And the Old Empire has this technology on Mars that causes us to forget our previous incarnations when we die and traps us here. And they
Hmm.
feed on that energy. And the Dominion tried, that were supposedly the good people, tried to eliminate this. Now, this is like a broad science fiction story with shades of Scientology and Zecharia Sitchin, right? Nonetheless, it infigures something
Hmm.
that is both terrifying, plausible. Like, why
Hmm.
do we forget our previous incarnations? What happens to someone when they experience what we refer to as enlightenment and those quote unquote, and it's important to have those quotes there, previous incarnations flood back into their awareness, as it
Yeah.
is said happened to the Buddha and so forth, right? And I know people who have recovered, again,
Yes.
I remember my some of my past lives, so I don't personally think it's a prison planet. I do think I can understand why people have that views, and I think it's a fantastic place to be. It's
I,
one of my favorite
I
planets.
adore this world.
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I
And
love you. Yeah.
but that's just one way of understanding the many different perspectives.
So it's natural for the humans to narratize the shadow. Let's put it that way. That might be part of an answer to your question, Henrietta.
Yes. No,
And
totally. Totally. I mean, I'm
and
fascinated. It's just kind of deviates. Perhaps
so
it's boring.
Alan, you were saying something about the difference between narratives and I don't know what the opposite of a narrative is.
Non-narrative.
Okay, so what to you is most reliable? If there's something we can count upon in
Right.
your mind, what is how could you point us in that direction?
No, narratives are a natural function of order, and we're always trying to make sense of reality, just like you don't believe your narrative, you know? Don't I mean it's like a scaffolding for knowing.
So
So it's about knowing, it's about gnosis, right? It's not about believing. Believing is the lowest level of conjecture. Believing means nothing. I call it make believe. You want to believe something, make yourself believe it. It doesn't count for anything. Oh, I'll make believe that. I'll make believe this because it's all make believe. But knowing, this is where the Gnostics, like, do you believe you're sitting in that room or do you know you're sitting in that room? Right? You can make up a narrative, oh, I think I'm sitting here. But the truth is, gnosis trumps all. Sorry to use that expression, but it does. But
um,
yes.
so when you say gnosis, I mean, when I think of gnosis, I think of something like living insight, which I have experience of occasionally, right? I don't necessarily believe it. It's ways of seeing in consciousness, awareness, and relation, right? These three things,
Yeah.
consciousness, awareness, and relation, really to me is up near the top of the, well, I don't know. Relation is fundamentally important because I trust intimacy. I don't necessarily mean that romantically or sexually. I trust relational intimacy and I trust insight. Knowledge is kind of the dead remains of something most of the time, it
Yes.
seems to me.
I like that quote. Knowledge is the dead remains of something. That's good.
You know, one
Yeah.
day when we were actually shortly after we were all speaking, this magnificent insect flew into my father's backyard, and it was shining turquoise and it was alive, and I was like, "Oh my God, what is it? What is it?" And it was flying around for like a few minutes, and I followed it, and it was some kind of a large turquoise beetle, like a scarab, right? And it was alive, and I was fascinated and in love, and I was hoping it would land. I wanted to see it up close and it eventually it hung out for quite some time. And I was conversing with someone else while it was there, someone in Portugal who became very important in my life. A few days later, I was walking down the street and I found the carcass of one. And I
Yeah.
realized immediately that's what knowledge is. Now I can hold the dead thing in my hand and I know what was flying before, what was alive before, you know.
That's a good analogy. Yeah. I like
You
that.
know, I mean, it's a separate thing, but Jung has a great story of a scarab flying into his office.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
At that
And
moment. Yeah.
yes, yes. But yeah, knowledge, it's not dead in the sense because it has nourished us for the moment. And then digesting it, it's then, but the nourishment of the knowledge is something in that moment, and then it's dead. Then it's gone. If you, I
Okay,
mean,
now
I think.
this leads me to a question that's dear to my own heart because I'm extremely concerned about uh, the our species, the group humans, which I see as very different from individuals or small groups. I'm
Mhm.
very
Mm,
concerned about the group humans' relationship with technology. Say
mm.
whatever you feel about this.
Well, when you say technology, what are you talking about? We're doing it right now. So what technology are you saying? AI? I mean, what do you mean? Technology started with fire, and
Well,
what,
I would argue language is a technology. It's just
yeah, of course. So technology is here, as Marshall McLuhan says, to be an extension of our senses. So it's not technology, it's what Thomas Jefferson said. The price of liberty is constant vigilance.
Mm.
So, are you going to burn your house down with fire? Or are you going to heat your food and warm your body? It's like, it's always a double-edged sword.
Yes, now
Technology.
again, I wasn't necessarily saying technology is a bad thing. I'm saying I'm terrified of technology in the hands of a dissociated cluster of captured humans that are war making and commerce making and stuff like that. The last thing I would want in the universe is for the United States military to get a hold of free energy, or even for the humans to get a hold of free energy. That would be the end of life on Earth in short order, it seems to me. Your
Well,
thoughts?
that's why it's not happening.
Yeah.
I think the intelligence, the phenomena is smart enough to know we're still very primitive.
At the
And
group
so,
level, we're idiotic. I mean, we're just omnicidal maniacs.
I mean, as long as this is what Childhood Zen was about by Arthur C. Clarke. Did you read that book?
Oh yeah, I read that when I was 7.
Well, read it again. It's still, I mean, it's a little dated, but it's also pretty amazing. Did you read that, Henrietta, Childhood
No,
Zen?
no, no. What's just briefly?
It's
What's
about ETs coming to the planet and saying, this is when there was apartheid in South Africa. You have to change
mm,
everything if you want our help. I mean, I read it a while ago too, but it's a great book. Arthur C. Clarke was quite an amazing
There's
person.
no collective of humans worth contacting.
There's no collective of humans where
There's
there
no, I
are.
would, there's no powerful group of humans that I would trust with silverware. And I mean, I'm being very emphatic, but literally, like, our collectives seem to me to be utterly misguided, captured by some weird death process, and insane. I mean, Wedico is one way of talking.
Well, are you talking about everyone? Who are you
No,
talking?
no, I'm talking about, okay, if we look at layers from like the individual to the family to small groups to large groups and then really big groups. When we make groups, mostly it's a problem, right? When humans make groups, it's mostly a problem, especially beyond a certain number of people. It just
Well,
seems,
that's what kept the Aboriginals going for 60,000 years. They did never develop government and large groups. They live in small clans. And you know what the secret to that was?
do tell.
I think I may have said before, this is something Robert Lawler was really big on talking about because he wrote the book called Voices of the First Day, which is about the Aboriginal people and their spiritual tradition. Voices
Absolutely.
of the First Day. And
Yeah.
that's a great, he said they never developed agriculture. So they never created a hierarchy where there had to be people in place and stationary and people ruling over people
Never
and people.
settled. Yeah,
They never settled. Yes, exactly.
continued to traverse in sort of
But they
small,
developed an incredible spiritual culture
they
where
did.
women would give birth to spiritual beings, but their technology was the earth itself, if you want to
Yes.
call it that.
They
See,
also
this is the kind of thing I,
communicated telepathically, right?
Yes,
They did
exactly.
a lot of telepathic communication rather than vocal, so that's
So they
interesting.
they were pretty content, I would imagine, until the white man came along. And
Maybe, do you think that's possible that what you're talking about with the UFO phenomenon or all these, things that we can't sort of understand or categorize or identify, do you think it's possible that we could maybe explore it more telepathically or something like
well,
that?
that's exactly what they want.
Doing a lot of talking, but it's
No,
like maybe it's a different way of understanding it
that's
altogether.
exactly what they want us to do. We are very, in my opinion, this is sort of the bottom line here, Darren. Uh, we're trapped in a matrix. Maybe it was created, our minds have been shut down. The capacity of our brain, we are all telepathic. We all can all remote view,
Hey,
and we've been dumbed
100%.
down, right? We've been dumbed down from our religions, our media, our political parties, our families. Everything has kept us in a very small box. And when I teach remote viewing, it's like, wow, we can really do this. I mean, I just did a course today, and this woman said, and I was showing this picture, and she said, well, it's cold. It's like a mountain. It's blue and white. Is it an iceberg? And it was an iceberg. She got a bullseye on that target. So,
It's
you
amazing.
know,
this
yeah.
is,
So, how
this is
does that
very,
happen?
yeah.
There's no way to explain how remote viewing actually happens.
Oh, I mean, I think there are ways to explain
Well,
it. There's,
would you explain it?
well, it's very complicated. The first thing is we think consciousness is in separate people. We think
Yeah,
our mind is separate. If
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not separate, I think you may know my friend Marla Fries. I don't know if you
Yes,
know.
yes.
I've heard it for a long
Exactly.
time. I've
Oh,
heard
I've
about it.
spoken to her a few times, and actually, it was very interesting what she said about her UFO experience.
Yes, yes. She became a psychic through a UFO experience. I don't want to speak for her, but
Yeah.
we were having
No,
a
I'd like to
conversation.
hear about that actually. What happened to
Should
her?
talk to her, Ellen. She's interesting. Yeah.
It's been quite a while since I've heard her story, probably more than 15 years, so it's not fresh enough in my memory for me to reiterate it. I just want to say something brief.
Mm.
I remember once when the non-human intelligence was actually with me, and I was talking with a young man in Canada, and he was very interested in using psychedelic drugs, and I was trying to convince him not to.
Mm.
And I explained to him that our minds are actually a network. The idea that we're separate, it's not untrue, but it's not the most important thing about what's going on. And if you can touch the network, you can be in other minds, you can share in other minds. And he was like,
Yes.
well, prove it. And I said, right now? And he was like, yeah. And I said, okay. And so I just went to the place in myself where I used to be able to sense very clearly when the other mind was with mine, much more clearly than now. And I said, well, I don't understand why this is so, but your room is orange and it's not painted orange and you don't have orange furniture and there's like an arrow pattern on the floor. And he started swearing and yelling, like, oh my God, he was like, how could you possibly do, like, I just spilled orange juice all over my rug and it's an arrow pattern. And that's just a personal experience of my own that I've actually had, right?
Wait, what was the upsetting part? I don't get it. I missed
He was
something.
upset because he couldn't believe it was possible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It didn't make
Yeah.
any sense to
He,
him.
he couldn't believe what was possible. I missed that
I could
part.
see what was going on in his room.
They were on
Oh,
the phone. Yeah.
We're on the
right,
phone.
because he was very, he thinks,
Similarly, when I talked to Marla, she asked permission first because she said something about my house, and I said, "You don't know anything about my house." And she said, "Well, let me see." And she led me from my front steps, told me how many steps there were, led me through every room in my
Yeah.
house, right?
Yeah,
One by one, clockwise, told me what was in each room, who was in each room, told me what I could see out the back window. And basically, she made like 17 consecutive statements with no questions, and every single one of them was correct.
yeah.
So I
all
know
right, we can
there
prove
is an
that's true.
explanation.
Yeah, I mean,
And one of the
Stanford,
explanations is
it's
that consciousness isn't trapped in our bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
It's not, it never was.
I agree. I totally agree. That's why it works. We're not local.
Now, people like Tom Campbell or Robert Monroe might have a different explanation. You
Right.
know, Campbell thinks, I guess, that the universe is a simulation. What's your
Well,
perspective
I don't
about
get along with Tom Campbell. I think he's very limited.
it?
We talked to him a bunch of times, right, Henrietta? But I mean, once
Yes.
at least. But
Once.
it doesn't make sense to me what Tom Campbell is saying.
Okay, so let's leave Tom out of it. Is it even possible that the universe is a simulation in your view?
Well, we're in a but who's created the simulation? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
Well,
the
only that, what is it a simulation of? Because there's no such
of
thing
no,
as
that's a very bizarre terminology.
there's
I
no such
mean,
thing as a simulation. A simulation has to be a simulation of something.
something. Yeah.
So
Does
what's the of?
I don't
I'd love
know.
to ask him that question,
It's
'cause
just another
answer, but
delusion. It doesn't mean anything. Okay, it's a simulation. So what? Doesn't change anything. Who
Yeah, and
cares?
what you're saying is that doesn't help us see better.
Exactly.
Right? That
right.
idea doesn't help, doesn't give us, what does it
It
give us?
doesn't do
That's
anything.
totally right. Yeah.
I mean, so what? Okay, it's Maya. It's a simulation, but here you are. So let's do something. I mean, right?
Right, yes. Let's be. And so why, Alan, why do you think why have you lived the life that you're living? What is your mission in life, this lifetime?
Mm.
Well, knowledge, for one. I mean, for me, because I'm an Aquarius, for whatever label you want to give me, I enjoy learning about things, understanding things. That is why the UFO issue is the most fascinating thing on the planet because it's not comprehensible, but it can be.
Hmm?
And that's what how do we make the incomprehensible comprehensible? How do we make the unknown known? How do we cognize a new reality, basically? That's my excitement. And, I can't think of anything that would be more stimulating. I mean, maybe there are, but for now, that's kind of a fun thing to deal with, right?
Right, it leads us up out of human categories, knowledge, supposition, and even theory, possibly toward the origin of those possibilities, right? It's almost as if it's the point beyond what can be. Okay, yes, of course, we can sort of circle it and improve our conception and our perspectives, but we're not going to find out, we're not going to get to the top of the cone. It's like a direction rather than a destination. Does it make any sense what I'm saying?
Mm.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there is no ultimate destination. That's why.
Mhm. And so, what are the imperatives for the humans as we are related to this phenomena in your view in this time?
Well, the imperative is to change the way you look at yourself, your mind, your reality, make peace with yourself, the planet, each other. Um, that's the imperative, stop war. I mean, it's what everyone's saying, but we're not doing it. We're all connected. I mean, what Bruce Lipton says in my book, we're not going to meet the other ones until we realize we're all part of one single consciousness ourselves.
What will it take to wake the groups of humans up? What would it take to get them to change their motivations and priorities, do you think?
Um, I think getting rid of, I mean, I think it's John Lennon, imagine all the people living for today. It's getting rid of your history, your family, your religion, your country, you know, living for today. Imagine that.
Presence in the present moment together for each other.
Yeah, and yourself. And
Mhm.
what's that, Henrietta?
That doesn't make sense to me that you get rid of your history and your family.
Well,
You
you don't
can't.
get attached to it. You just don't say, you know, I'm an American, I'm a this, I'm a that, and then you're different because I'm this and you're that. It's not like you just regard, but you don't place an importance on the things you label yourself as Jewish, Christian, Muslim. It's like
The
public.
end, imagine, Henrietta, rather than the first thing that Alan was saying, imagine something like the end of otherizing, the end of the
Right. That,
others,
yeah. No,
the
that
end
I
of
can.
us and
Yeah.
them ism,
Well,
right?
yeah, totally.
So
Yeah.
to break down the barriers in category that normally stand between us, one of my friends was saying one of the biggest problems in history that often leads to fascism is nothing more than the transfer of wealth between generations, right? The transfer of property and wealth and the defense of the endless defense of the transfer of wealth and property and power between the generations.
From the rich, though, to those in power. Only those in power, though, right?
Exactly. I mean,
Uh,
Interesting. Yeah.
there's so many problems historically.
who said that, Darren?
My friend, the neuroscientist, Dr. Baru, he doesn't like me to talk about his thoughts,
But
but
anyway, so he's saying that's the purpose of what?
he's saying that's one of the problems that often leads to fascism, right? Is the prioritization of the transfer of wealth between generations. Now, I want to get to one other question. Is it
Yeah.
possible, one of the so look, I was shown many things during my experience, and one of them was that there are beings. There's a sort of syllogism here, right? Which is, I'll just state it clearly. As bees are to flowers and honey, X is to living worlds and Y. So imagine that worlds are like flowers,
Mm.
and there's something that links all the worlds together, and they make this honey, which could be what evolutionary potential or transcendence, the capacity for telepathy and high intelligence and stuff. They make this honey from linking the worlds together in a way not dissimilar to how the bees do. Might it not be that there are beings to whom we are flowers, right? They are like the bees and we are like the flowers, and there's this really deep enmeshed symbiosis between us. Has anyone ever spoken of anything like this to you?
To me, wait, so state that simply in a sense. What are you saying?
Imagine that we are deeply symbiotic with, for example, beings that are non-corporeal, but maybe they dwell in the substrate from which time-space emerges, and that we're intimately linked with them in a way as dramatic as the linkage between bees and
But
flowers.
but but Darren, we are them. We're
Yes,
not
this is what I'm
linked to
trying to
them.
say. It's the same. It's one. it's
We
one.
are them. This is the illusion or the simulation or the Maya.
Yeah.
We are that. This is all a Leela. I mean, this is all a
Mm.
game. The dramas, the wants, the desires, all that is just soul experiencing. And maybe it feeds the matrix or not, but it's an evolution and you can enjoy it or not. You could be miserable, like my mother, or you can enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, this is how it seems to me because I feel the same way about the other organisms here on Earth, right? The whales and the dolphins and the bees and the flowers and the trees and all these things. Of course, I understand I'm a human, they're a different species. Yes, I get the separation thing, but the unity thing prevails over that in my experience and in my thought and in my heart, right? I adore the other beings here, all of the other beings, and they all seem to be intelligent to me. Scientists are like, it looks like corvids could solve problems that humans set up for them. I'm like, okay, good for science. Amazing. You guys figured out something that's been obvious to humans for 400,000 years. Congratulations. Um, like all of the beings here are intelligent. Their intelligence is embodied rather
Right.
than representational.
That's nature. And the UFO, whatever that
Mm.
is a higher, unseen form of that intelligence. It's
Yeah.
not separate from that.
Yeah.
It's the implicate order. And it's here and coming into our purview at this moment because we have to wake up. I'm saying have to, because something, I mean, it seems more urgent for whatever
Something is at
reason.
risk. Yeah, there's a risk. There's a near-term risk.
I guess, I mean, or maybe we're imposing that. That might not even be true, but it seems like energetically there is something accelerating our movement towards what did Terrence McKenna called it the eschatology at the end of time.
Eschaton, yeah.
Eschaton, the great, and he was so right, even though no one knew what he was saying. But yes, there's an eschaton, and maybe he's already there. I don't know, you
Hmm,
know.
hmm.
But it's the world is subjective and objective. Like you're there, you and Henrietta are there on my computer screen, but I'm also on your computer screen, but you're subjectively on my computer screen in my room, and you're in my subjective world, but you also have your computer screen. You're in your subjective world, and we're meeting in the Vesica Pisces to overlap and create another immaterial world. These are the material worlds, but the worlds that we're actually forming is the mind field that can't be put on a computer screen. Does that make
Right.
sense?
So there's three images on your screen, Alan, three images on my screen, three images on Henrietta's screen, and there's the cloud recording that's taking place inside a machine. Um,
But all that is just the surface of
yes.
the actual um, minefield, I'll just call it, that cannot be recorded, but it can be perceived in the recording of it. I mean, it's we're creating something that's not on the video screen,
Yes. Yes.
and it's not in the word. I mean, sort of in the words, but it's not tangible. And this is everything you're asking all of us. You're talking about grasping the intangibility that can't be grasped.
Yes, but of course we naturally like to play with these verbal ghosts in the intellect and in conversation.
Well, I love that too because, that's why we're here to
Yeah.
play. This is what one of the things Ken Wilber said. He said, I love intellectual entertainment. There's nothing wrong with like going deep into a philosophical problem because it's so engaging and interesting and meaningless. I'm putting that word. He doesn't say meaningless. I say, and meaningful is another way you could put it. I think I never read this book, but people keep referring to Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Oh, right, yeah.
I just read it.
You did? What can you give us a little synopsis?
Well, I mean, he was a Holocaust survivor, so he and he was a psychologist already. So this kind of changed his many of his perspectives on how humans
But
behave.
what is
But
the search for meaning? What does that mean?
the search for meaning is something that's a natural impulse in every human, right? It's a bit like I was very captivated by what Darren was saying about the living world as a blossoming flower. But I mean, you might wonder, like, isn't there something that wants us all to do something? Do you
Yes.
both think so? If there's a creator or whatever, I mean, you could talk about it in any way, but he kind of comes to see that there must be. I mean, what is the impulse to survive, even in the most dire circumstances like that?
Hmm. Like a concentration camp, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one example, but that was a pretty extreme example of,
Well,
humans
it's
under
the most extreme
with pressure
example.
suddenly and unexpectedly and, unimaginably. So anyway, he's very intelligent. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, I mean, he was maybe in a concentrate Holocaust, but is it any different with any of us?
Well, that's the whole point is that no, there'll always be the kind of replica of what that experience in one's own, or can be in one's own life. The sort of the prison concept that you talk about, the prison planet. Don't, everybody can be entrapped or
For free.
working towards a liberation. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, but
In science fiction and in fantasy, we are given visions of what we could do together, what is possible for humans so, if we were not subject to the inhibitions and amputations of language and enculturation and commodity culture and war and all of these things. And when we get together in even a small group, oh yeah, I just want to mention that one other thing about the small group thing. Even before I thought much about any of these topics, it became clear to me as I was learning how to work with other humans, how to have a job and whatever, right? That when I worked in very small companies, the integration and coherence was high. And as I got to working in larger companies, integration and coherence was terrible, right, between the people. So it became immediately obvious to me that humans work really well in small, tightly knit groups. And it seems to me that one of the frontiers of our humanity is the establishment of something resembling intelligent human culture, and that probably small, tightly knit groups are the seedbed where that's likely to arise and succeed and perhaps become contagious. What are your thoughts about that, Alan? What could we do? Is there something we can actually do?
Do about what reframe that? Do
Like
about
to escape the traps that we presently face as a species and perhaps to prepare for the possibility of contact with other, we might imagine altruistic intelligences. What can we actually do? What should we do together? Is there anything in your mind that you can see? Is there a path that you can see or
yeah,
recommend?
be present.
You did
Don't
say,
live in the past or the future.
well,
No one's going to save us from ourselves. We have to do that. I mean, there's nothing, I
I
mean,
think that we have to actually do things. I don't think being present is enough. I think you have to do
well,
good things for other people. I think you have to
well,
do,
that's a good point. For
you can't
me,
just, I
it's
know
like,
the
that's not
forces that
enough.
are crushing us are so active. They're very fucking active, pardon me for being blunt. But yeah, the forces that are crushing humanity and eating up the world are extreme.
Very, yeah.
I don't think
no,
we'll
but
prevail against them
I just
passively.
answered kind of, I just asked, what can each of us do? I agree with you, Henrietta. Thank you for saying that. Um,
No, No, I just wanted
What
to
can,
sort of
well,
expand
I'm
that.
doing what I'm compelled to do is find out what's going on.
I mean,
I mean, I can only, and that's exciting when I'm not distracted by nonsense. What-
No, it
What's
just
that,
actually
Henry?
it makes me think that the two of you, you're both really good at like thinking and analyzing, which is really important. And then there are other people who would, I don't know, and then there are, yeah, I'm not so good at that, but I know that I like to help people in the immediate present who are immediately around me. That I mean, there's a sort of, you know, that, you know what I'm saying? It's
I
like
do too. Yeah, I'm.
I mean,
I'm.
just sort of like literally, whether it's here in this town or where, that kind of networking that you're talking about in small groups where you're not separated from the other, like that, what you're talking about, presence in action is important to me. And these conversations are helpful in many ways, but ultimately it's going to be about who you are as a human in all your dealings with every single personal being, isn't
I'm
it?
addicted to altruism.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
an
The
active,
like how
extreme
you
altruist. Yeah, I'm a weird. I want to. Yes, okay.
Well,
I'm a
no,
weird.
it's not
good.
weird. It's natural.
No, it's natural. Yeah.
Marshall Rosenberg, we think people need to receive love, but there's a people need to give love. So that's why you ask someone for directions
Yes.
anywhere. They're always happy because it makes them feel good about themselves, and helping other people is a natural state, a natural.
Do you
Mm,
think the UFO oh, sorry,
yeah,
I
go
should
ahead. Yeah.
no,
Oh,
you
think the UFO
sorry,
can
Anna.
what?
I
No,
totally
no,
jumped
say
in.
it. Say what you're saying, please.
Do you think the
What,
UFO phenomenon it just seems to me that there's something to do with this, with that, with
well, I was thinking about
like
this.
like an invitation, a conversation. There's something, you know,
Mm, no, no,
as
I
as a
think,
part of this mind that we're all part, that they
yeah.
like
I was gonna,
like
no,
Darren was saying, a directional pull, you
well,
know,
I'll tell you something that I was discovering. I was going to say, thank you for reminding me about this. I was going to say this at Contact in the Desert. I was in front of 500 people and I got on to other things, but I had this realization because this friend of mine wanted me to go to this Buddhist little round table, talk to her teacher, and maybe I told you this, and all these people in this Buddhist group were just talking about their enlightenment, their process, their consciousness. And when I got to Contact in the Desert, people weren't talking about their enlightenment. They were talking about what can we do for each other to wake each other. It was such a higher energy, in my opinion. It wasn't about my awakening, this, me, which is very, maybe it's not Buddhism, but it was very new age for what. And the UFO thing is like, okay, let's think about this collectively. Let's put, I don't know if that's what you were asking, but it was
no,
so
no, I
much
think it's
more altruistic
leading us
in
out of a very narcissistic.
addressing the phenomena. It doesn't concern us directly, and yet it does concern us directly. So you're so right, Henrietta. Thank you for bringing that up. That is such a good point.
No, it just seems to kind of like break it. Could you even say that, like, in my experience of the tiny things that I've seen and spoken to many people in different countries who've had these experiences, it seems to be like almost like that spell breaker, something happens where you just can't frame things in the way that you have. It,
Right.
and Marla Fries told me that, I hope I can say this because I haven't asked her, but she's quite open. But maybe anyway, I've just said her name now. I should have said somebody. Well, I'll just say something very simple then and not elaborate. But when she did a small group experimentation at a certain place with UFOs, she experimented with conversations with them, and that happened kind of like flashing movements. And so it was like, she said it was a whole different way of conversing, but it was beautiful, extraordinary. I mean, I'll just say that, but that's interesting to me.
I don't
Um,
think Mama would be concerned about you speaking openly unless she I mean, I know her fairly well, even though we haven't spoken in a
yeah.
bit. I
No,
doubt.
I mean, that's all I'd say, because I haven't really said where she is or where she was or who she was with. But I just kind of loved that idea of like, they weren't just, well, she wasn't just analyzing, and she actually just was like conversing.
Okay, there's a topic in the background here that I want to bring to the foreground.
Oh, yeah,
Is
go on.
that the phenomena acts as an attractor, and it's an
Yes,
attractor out of I'm an individual Darren and I'm the important thing,
yes, totally.
toward like
That's
we
where I
are a
was going.
species, we are beings together, we are a planet together. We have
Yes,
to remember the imperatives that we brought to our human birth as children and that were sort of crammed down by our culture, our language,
yes,
our
totally. That's
society.
why. Mhm. I was
It's
really
it's a
interested in how children relate to that,
Yes,
right?
yes, that's why I love that question.
No, I
It,
was, and and that I don't know if anyone's explored. Well, you said Mary Rodwell, but I'd love to personally kind of speak to more children because, you
me
know,
too. Yeah.
dreams and in those kind of liminal states, and then because I know I've had some strange dreams that took me back to kind of my childhood bedroom where there was this like weird, clunky UFO flashing red and blue lights outside, but it was kind of like, wait, is that a memory? Or it's interesting.
So
Uh,
I think we've gotten to a really important point, and that was great that you brought that in, Darren, because maybe that's another aspect of what the phenomena is pushing us towards, an intellectual altruism, if you want to call it that, or
yes,
spiritual, or mm,
certainly.
transcendence. What's
Yeah.
that,
there's this,
Henrietta? What did you say?
Well, certainly more this kind of collective, like you know, where you're not, I mean, for want of a better expression, you're not so, self-focused, narcissistic.
Exactly.
You
Like
know,
the Buddhists or the
like
Christians.
how do we move, as Darren says, in small groups, in pods, and how do we sort of consider, like Darren's the head and Alan's the heart and I'm the hands,
Mm.
like when you start thinking about yourself as not a separate set, like that would get truly interesting when
there's
you
Yeah,
just,
well,
there's another
yeah.
direction to this gravity, which is the unforgetting, right? The anamnesis was a Greek word that they used. The
yeah,
unforgetting. And so that liberation from all of the kind of inhibitive sclerotic structure that we've acquired by the time most of us enter adulthood. And some of us, work to slough that off in various ways through
yes,
meditation or through altruistic action or through art or through dreaming or through, intellectual activity. But there's this draw, it's like a magnet outside of time that's drawing us
yes,
together back to something we can actually trust, it seems to me.
yes.
And I don't trust the military or the government
Maybe
to
it's the
gate.
creator of the whole
They're
thing.
the
Maybe
wrong
that's what's
gatekeeper.
happening.
Yeah, that's the wrong gatekeeper entirely. The motivations of the government or the military or the corporations are
Well,
malignant best.
no, that I mean, who could possibly, you know what? We need to talk to a lot more women about this too, because women sense
Yeah.
like deeply in their body. Like I could tell you right off, like, are you kidding? Like, don't even trust. I mean, you got to sort of also, it's sort of much more about, or is it a parallel thing of like sensing as much as thinking? You got to do the two. It's got to be everything engaged. But I was just really interested with it because the way Marla talked about this conversation and she was so joyous. It was like that really lit something up in my mind,
What was she joyous about? Which part?
of having a conversation, like experimenting with going like, hello, hello, which I think is very
I'm sure
significant.
she
Hello.
was
And then they're like, hello. It's like,
yeah,
whoa, that's contact. I don't
yeah,
know. Yeah.
yeah. I'm
Very
sure she was
basic.
They were at the Monroe Institute when that was happening. I'm almost certain.
Yes.
She told me, yeah. I know she
Okay.
wouldn't be upset about us discussing this.
Okay, good.
I
Yeah.
know, I know her.
Just her name. I should have said a
Yeah.
friend.
They were at the Monroe Institute when she was doing that because she mentioned that to me as well. And
And what was she doing? She was exactly doing what?
they were establishing a group mind and then
Yes.
directing it to make contact. There's, of course, you have like the CE5
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
what Greer is doing. I mean, I don't trust Greer very much. He's an interesting cat.
No,
Uh,
I don't trust him either.
I
No,
don't
he's
trust him. I trust what Marla was talking about because
Yes.
well, what exactly was she talking about?
setting the intention, connecting the minds in the group, and just sending a signal and waiting for a response and
Yes.
getting a response.
Which
That
is
And
actually what
getting a
the crop
response.
circlers do as well, which is really interesting. I think it connects to the crop circle phenomenon. Because by the way, I was just looking at the latest. Oh, um, sorry, the latest, like, look at that pattern. That's just arrived in England.
hmm,
Oh, where's that one?
That is interesting, Alan,
Where is
nine,
that? When did that
right?
arrive?
That
nine,
just
nine,
arrived
nine. Yeah.
2 days ago in
Wow.
not far away. And then this was the one prior.
Oh, will you go there and visit it for us?
Yes. But this particular one there, like that is interesting to me. I haven't seen anything like that. Like they keep throwing
Yeah, that is very
new patterns. That one
interesting.
is a very unusual one.
That is very strange.
Isn't it strange?
Now I want to ask you about this, Alan. You know that Valet has suggested that some of these are the United States using satellite energy devices to produce them. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I've been there. The ones I seen, like the 888, that was real. I
Hmm.
don't think they're doing that.
Okay.
I mean, Valet is great on so many things, and he's also off on a lot of things too. So, I
Yeah, he's
mean,
a fascinating character.
what were you gonna say, Henrietta? Yeah, go say it.
Has this been this might be really simplistic. I don't know, but there was one day when I was looking at a lot of the different crop circles and I suddenly like they opened up into not two-dimensional or three-dimensional, but like four. They suddenly like had all these dimensions where you could go into them. They like tunneled down and up.
Yes,
Oh,
that
Huh?
was someone did an animation of that actually.
that's
So
so important, Henrietta. I can't even explain how important that is. The
But
humans,
they're like different. They were different. It was like
yes,
I
yes,
wasn't
they're
seeing
not.
them in the same. It was like points of access. They were literally like, I mean, I
Yes.
don't portals, and they had like all these dimensions and movement.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because we sit here on our computers looking, excuse me, at flat pictures of things and thinking that's what it is, or we know
No,
what it is, or we even think it's a crop circle, right? We think, oh, I
yeah.
know what that is. It's
oh
this.
yeah. Wait, oh yeah, oh go ahead. Go keep talking.
Please. Oh, um, so there near my house,
Hmm.
up the hill, there are some very ancient stones. They're huge, right? They're gigantic stones, and they're on the top of the mountain, and they've been there for a million years or whatever, right? And there's a stone table at the bottom of them, there's a table that you can light. It was probably used for sacrifices. Who knows what it was used for?
Yes,
It's a
sure.
stone table and it's naturally flat and it's at the base of these stones. And when I lay on that stone and I talk to the rocks, right? I just said, I'm
Hmm.
here, I'm listening. They showed me this whole other universe inside the stone. They're like, there's an emerald
Yes,
labyrinth in here that leads to anywhere you want to go.
yes,
I
totally.
wasn't high. I wasn't, having
No, no,
fantastical
no.
problems. I was laying on the stone and talking to the rock, just asking it questions, telling it, I'm here, I'm listening, I honor your presence. And they were like, there's a whole labyrinth in here of emerald doorways that lead to anywhere you want to go in the universe, right? And these are just rock, people would just walk by and go like, oh yeah, those rock, that's interesting. There's some rocks there.
Wait, so what I want to say is that the way you're thinking, Darren and Alan, is that I mean, what I think, what I've always felt since I was a child is that should be the norm. Like this is what
Yes.
we should be doing. The other stuff is literally a waste of time. No, so you know, why aren't we lying on rocks and doing exactly that? Like then we'd be getting somewhere. So I think the UFO thing is kind of that.
Yeah.
Like you can't ignore that, like, let's stop playing dangerous games and pointless games when we could be doing what we're actually here to do, which is I mean, I'm not sure what that is, but I don't want to say what I think.
Well, oh no, do say what you think. Please don't. Yeah, by
Well, no,
all
because I'm not sure. I
that,
only have
you don't have to be sure. Say what you
sensing. Well, no, what you said about the living planet that's okay. Well, I personally sense that there is a creator of this and that there's a reason. So beyond, I feel like there's some kind of the relationship between the creator and us, that's what's coming together. That's what I think. So I think everything is sort of going towards that. I think that's the purpose. I can't really elaborate
But we came from that, Henrietta.
yes, no, exactly. So it's sort of I mean, we will become something else probably, right? We were something else. I don't really know. I don't want to say much more than that because I can't put it into words. I just have a sense that
I have to say, it sounds a little bit influenced by your Judaism, a little bit that point of view. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but it sounds
it's
like,
what I've always felt, but I've just found a way of kind of perhaps helping me
yeah.
understand.
I do have to go soon, but I think we did get somewhere in this conversation we haven't gotten to before.
Yes.
we
Well,
did.
I
Maybe
love
we should
that.
invite Marla into the conversation.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to hear more about like what I'm really fascinated about what people are sensing and thinking about what's going on with these phenomena.
Yeah.
Yes, I would love to have Marla here, and I'm sure that if she knew
And
that
some other
that you were
people.
here, Alan, she'd probably be interested.
I never met her. I don't know her.
Oh,
Oh,
okay,
you
but
would definitely be
she knows.
interested.
I'm sure she knows who you are.
I don't
And
Yes,
know.
she
I mean, I
probably
have a
does.
million more questions too, so I hope we can do this again sometime soon. And I'm just really grateful for this time.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is good. I can't go on too long because I'm here and have to eat
Yeah,
dinner.
I
Yes.
understand.
But
Yeah.
Henrietta, it's so great when you speak up and talk because you have a great mind for a unique perspective.
And also
Mm.
your heart. It's your spirit, your passion, the beauty of your heart. It speaks in your concerns. And I love that.
Well, I'm interested in, I love hearing you both like really think about it in very deep and analytical ways. I guess I am trying to sort of sense it more than think about it. But then, of course, it's quite hard for me to talk about it because
You
No, but
it's
I think you're right. It's the
spoke about
sensing beyond knowing. It's not
well, I
about
think it's just
speaking.
yeah, it's kind of like just what we were saying when Darren was talking about the rock. It's like when you or when either of you speak of a specific moment that you've had, I'm like, that's it. Like I don't want to talk about the systems. Like we know that they're
yeah,
kind of pointless. So
yeah, I
I want to
love
hear
that.
good stuff.
I love that about what you're saying, Henrietta.
Just cut
It's
the crap.
also if you brought the children in and you brought the women in, they would both say what you're saying right there.
Well, no, that I do. I mean, because I don't want to be like I don't want to leave the men out, but I kind of want to hear from the children and the women
Yes.
Well, that's exactly right. We forgot that
and the men, but it's not all of us together.
we
But
forgot. We forgot that we are
I
that.
want to hear from the pure,
Yeah.
untainted ones, and then women who are just generally speak, you know, just by nature, you know, you're just, I don't know, connected or something.
I mean, there
Yeah.
certainly is a concern about something that is more or less delusional. You know, we sometimes denigrate it with the term woo, but there's a difference
Yeah.
between woo and our hearts, right?
No,
Those
totally,
aren't the same thing.
Right.
totally.
I
To-
agree. I agree.
And actually,
Um,
David Metcalf would be good to talk
yeah,
about.
David, he's actually in dialogue with Diana Paselka pretty much.
It would be
But
great to get, it would be great to have a
yeah, let's
conversation
bring
with David
David and
again.
Marla into this.
Yeah.
I'll work on
David
that.
and Marla would be a great, that would be a, this, I mean, to just
I'm
expand this.
curious what David and Diana are thinking about because
Yeah.
she's a little conservative in her. I mean, I like her book, but she still calls herself a Christian. And because she had some mystical Christian experience she didn't want to talk about, but the UFO thing is pulling her out of her dogma. This is what I think it's doing. This is my opinion. That's what's happening to Diana Paselka. But
Yeah.
she is like trying to fit it into these strange boxes. And I say, you can't fit it into your religious box. It's not a religion. And she's saying the UFO thing is the new American religion, but it's not a religion at all. It's a mystery, but when you bring the idea of religion, of course she's a teacher of religion, but it's not religion. It's not about belief. It's like, I told you my favorite quote from Bud Hopkins when someone came up to him and said, "Oh, all this UFO abduction stuff, it sounds like a cult to me." And Bud says to this woman, "This is the exact opposite of a cult. A cult is all belief and no miracles. This is all miracles and no belief."
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Isn't that great? He was quite a smart guy. All right,
Yes.
but that's true. Anyway,
Also,
because,
when you talk to people who've experienced it, like so many different people, like I've met in Mexico, like really conservative, like, you
mm,
know, Catholic lawyers, accountant, you know,
right.
it's, and then they suddenly like tell you, you know, like it's a dirty secret, you know,
Yes, it's a
you're a
dirty,
UFO, and I can't,
it
you know,
is a dirty secret for a lot of people. That's the thing.
and then, you know, and my friend's father, who was a judge, you know, and she saw the UFO with her father, and you
Yes.
know, she was a child, and she just it's remained with her forever. But her father kind of was like broke out of his thing for, you know, his way of being, if you like, for about a week. And then it just was too hard to retain the cognitive dissonance. And he just kind of never
Well, the
spoke
next
about it.
conversation, let's go live on my YouTube channel and get this little out there in a public discussion.
Of
For
Yeah.
course.
us.
But and
Or if other,
with maybe with David and Marla or
yes,
something like that.
yes, tell them. Tell them. So let's
How we
maybe meet.
found our way through a little bit.
Okay,
Or
let's meet, like find out what they are up to and we can meet soon. I gotta
okay.
go, but
Okay,
thank you
have a
very much
wonderful
for this.
Thanks,
time,
Alan.
Alan.
Okay,
Henrietta, stay with
thanks.
me for a
I
minute.
will.
Okay, great.
So good to see you,
Let's
Alan.